everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. We love getting into the latest tech news, and today, we've got something a little juicy.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
So we found this article on CBS News, and
Oh, yeah, I saw that one too.
it's about Apple, Apple and Siri, their voice assistant.
Mm.
And get this, there's this lawsuit, and it claims that Siri may have been secretly recording conversations even when.
Even when it wasn't activated.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Like, even without the Hey Siri prompt.
That's a bit hypocritical for a company that prides itself on privacy, isn't it?
Right. Like, that's their whole thing. What happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone and all that.
Really makes you think, how all the data our devices are collecting. And not just Apple, all of them.
It's kind of creepy when you think about it.
It is. It really is.
So the article dives into this class action lawsuit.
Oh, yeah, is it a class action?
Yeah. And it says people are claiming Siri was recording all sorts of stuff, like even when you thought it was off.
Wow, so what could they be doing with those recordings? That's what I want to know.
That's a good question. I mean, we know companies use data for advertising, targeting ads and stuff, but...
But it could be more than that.
Yeah.
Think about it. Training AI, maybe even creating detailed profiles on people.
That's pretty unsettling.
It is, especially coming from a company like Apple that's, built their image around privacy.
And get this, Apple is settling this lawsuit.
And they are. How much?
For a cool $95 million.
$95 million.
Yeah. Now, they're not admitting they did anything wrong, of course, but still.
That's a hefty sum, even for Apple.
That's what I thought. But then I looked into it a bit more and...
Made you find?
Well, Apple's profit since, 2014 have been over $705 billion.
Oh, wow.
So 95 million. It's a drop in the bucket for them, really.
That's true. And they were also looking at a potential penalty of $1.5 billion if they'd lost the case.
Yeah, so maybe settling was the cheaper option.
Definitely a strategic move on their part.
But what about the people who were actually affected, The ones whose conversations might have been recorded.
Right. What about them?
Well, the article mentions that individual payouts could be up to $20 per eligible device.
$20. Really? That's it?
Yeah, I know. It doesn't seem like a lot, does it?
Not really. Especially considering the potential privacy violation.
But here's the thing. It's likely going to be way less than $20 per device.
Oh, why is that?
It all depends on how many people actually join the class action, So the more people that join, the smaller the individual payout will probably be.
Ah, I see. So it could end up being just a few bucks for each person.
Probably, yeah. But hey, a few bucks is better than nothing, right?
I guess so, but it still feels a little, I don't know, underwhelming.
I know what you mean. It doesn't feel quite like justice,
Exactly. Like a slap on the wrist for Apple and a few pennies for the people affected.
It kind of makes you wonder, is this settlement enough?
It's a good question. What do you think?
Honestly, I'm not sure. It's a lot of money, sure, but is it enough to actually hold Apple accountable?
And what about the precedent it sets, for other tech companies?
Yeah, that's a good point. Does this just give them a free pass to keep collecting our data without our knowledge?
It's definitely something to think about.
It is. And it makes you wonder how many other companies are doing this, recording our conversations without us knowing?
Right. It's a little scary, isn't it? Like Big Brother's always listening, even when we think they're not.
It's like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Exactly. But it's not sci-fi. It's real life.
And it's happening right now on our phones, in our homes.
It really makes you question who you can trust, doesn't it?
It does. And it makes you wonder, what can we do to protect our privacy in this digital age?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
And I don't think there's an easy answer.
No, I don't think so either.
But I think it starts with being aware, aware of what data our devices are collecting and what companies are doing with that data.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And maybe, just maybe, if enough people start demanding better privacy, companies will actually start listening.
I hope so. Because right now it feels like we're just pawns in their game,
I know what you mean. It's like we're trading our privacy for convenience.
Exactly. And I'm not sure that's a trade-off I'm comfortable with anymore.
Me neither.
So what can we do? What can we do?
Well, for starters, we can take a look at our privacy settings, see what permissions we've given to different apps, and maybe make some changes.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll admit, I haven't checked my settings in a while.
Me neither. But maybe it's time we all did.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And you know what else we can do? We can start talking about this more. With our friends, our families, even our elected officials.
Yeah, get the conversation going.
Exactly. Because the more people who are aware of this issue, the more pressure we can put on companies to change their practices.
I like that. So let's all make a pact right now to be more mindful of our digital privacy.
Agreed? And to hold these tech giants accountable for their actions.
Absolutely. Our privacy is worth fighting for.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So where do we go from here?
Well, this lawsuit is a good starting point. It's brought the issue of voice assistant privacy into the spotlight, and now it's up to us to keep that spotlight shining.
I think you're right. And speaking of lawsuits, let's not forget about the lawyers involved in this one.
Oh yeah, the lawyers.
Yeah.
They're not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts, are they?
Nope. According to the article, they could receive almost $30 million from the settlement.
30 million. Wow. That's almost a third of the total settlement amount.
I know, right? It's kind of crazy.
It is. And it raises some questions, doesn't it? Like,
How?
who's really benefiting from this lawsuit?
That's a good point. Is it the people whose privacy was violated, or is it the lawyers?
It's a tough question. And I don't think there's an easy answer.
No, I don't think so either. But it's definitely something to think about.
It is. And it's another reason why we need to be more aware of how these class action lawsuits work and who's really profiting from them.
Yeah, that's a good point. We need to be informed consumers, not just of the products we buy, but also of the legal system that governs them.
Exactly. Knowledge is power. All right.
Absolutely.
So let's all do our homework and make sure we're making informed decisions about our privacy, our data, and our legal rights.
Agreed. And let's not be afraid to speak up and demand better from the companies we do business with.
Hear, hear.
So what do you say, listener? Are you ready to join the fight for digital privacy?
Because we are.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive into the world of tech and privacy. Until then, stay safe, stay informed, and stay vigilant.
And don't forget to check your Siri settings.
Uh-huh. Good one. All right, that's all for today. See you next time.
See ya.
It's a lot of money, almost $30 million, but is it enough to actually hold Apple accountable? I mean, does this really send a message?
Well, I think it does send a message to some extent. This isn't just a small slap on the wrist. It's a significant amount of money.
True, true. But even if the individual payout is small, this lawsuit still shows them, these big tech companies, that they can't just take our data without asking, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think it sets a precedent. And maybe we'll start to see more transparency around how data is collected and used, maybe even stricter rules about what companies can do with our information.
That would be great. It's like a wake-up call for all of us to pay more attention to the data our devices are gathering. What can we do to protect our privacy in this whole digital age? It feels like everything's connected these days.
It is, isn't it? Everything's connected, always tracking. I think it starts with being informed.
Yeah.
Actually looking at those privacy settings on your devices, seeing what permissions you've granted to different apps, all that stuff.
Yeah, good point. Have you checked your Siri settings recently?
I can't say I have. I always just assume everything's set to protect my privacy. But maybe that's not the smartest move.
I've been guilty of that too. Just assuming everything's fine. But this whole Siri thing makes you think maybe I shouldn't be so trusting.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in the convenience of it all, the voice assistants, the personalized recommendations, all that. But we got to remember, there's usually a trade-off. We're giving up some of our privacy for that convenience.
So we shouldn't just blindly accept the default settings on our devices.
Exactly. Take a few minutes, dig into those settings, see what information you're comfortable sharing. You have more control than you might think.
I like that, taking control. But even with the best settings, there's still a chance that our conversations could be recorded, right? This whole Siri thing has got me feeling a little paranoid, like someone's always listening.
I get it. It's unsettling, for sure. But let's not go too far down the rabbit hole here. Complete privacy might be a myth in this digital world. But being aware of the risks and making informed choices about your settings, that can make a big difference.
So what do you think the settlement means for the future of voice assistants? Do you think companies like Apple will be more careful about how they handle our data now?
Well, this case has definitely put a spotlight on the issue of voice assistant privacy, and more people are talking about it, thinking about it. So I think companies will have to adapt. I mean, consumers are becoming more aware, more concerned about privacy.
It's like a shift in the tide, maybe?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see more privacy-focused options popping up, voice assistants that are designed with privacy in mind from the ground up.
That would be awesome. But until then, we're all on our own to protect our digital footprints, right?
It's true. It's about making choices, choosing which devices we use, which services we trust, and being mindful of the information we're sharing. This lawsuit is a reminder that our privacy is valuable, worth protecting.
This conversation has been really eye-opening. I've got to rethink how I use my devices and how I protect my data. I appreciate you taking the time to break all this down for us.
Happy to do it. These conversations are important, especially as technology keeps evolving. We need to keep learning, keep questioning, keep pushing for better privacy practices.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier. Apple has built its brand around privacy. Privacy. That's iPhone. Does this settlement change how we should view their commitment to privacy?
That's a tough one.
Hmm.
I mean, this settlement doesn't necessarily mean they're throwing privacy out the window, but it does raise questions about their practices, right?
Mhm.
How they balance user privacy with data collection, all that.
Yeah, it's like they're saying one thing but doing another.
Maybe. Ultimately, it's up to each person to decide how they feel about it, to decide how much they trust Apple with their data.
It's about trust and about comfort levels. We all have different boundaries when it comes to privacy.
Exactly. What feels okay for one person might feel invasive to another. The important thing is to be aware of the issues and make choices that you feel good about.
This deep dive has really made me rethink my own approach to digital privacy. I'm going to be paying closer attention to my settings, making sure I understand what data I'm sharing.
That's great to hear. It's all about taking control, being proactive.
So what are your final thoughts for our listeners? What should they take away from all of this?
Well, I think the big thing for me is we can't just assume that our privacy is being protected. Like, we have to take charge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to feel kind of powerless when you're up against these giant tech companies, but we do have some control. Like you said, we can choose which devices we use, which companies we trust, and we can adjust those privacy settings. Don't forget about that.
Right. And we can speak up. Right. Tell these companies that we want better privacy protections. Maybe even talk to our elected officials about stronger laws. Exactly. Don't underestimate the power of making your voice heard. It's kind of funny. We started this whole deep dive talking about Siri eavesdropping, and now we're talking about, like, the whole digital landscape.
I know. It's like one news story can lead to so many bigger questions. It's kind of what we love about these deep dives, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's all about taking one piece of information and just seeing where it leads. Like, what do you think, listener, about all of this? Does this whole Apple settlement change how you feel about using voice assistants or about Apple in general? Like, do you trust them as much?
Yeah, and what about their whole commitment to privacy, right? Like they're always saying privacy, that's iPhone, but is it really?
Tough question. It's all about how much you value the convenience of these technologies. Weighed against the potential risks to your privacy.
Hmm.
No easy answers there. Just got to make the choices that feel right for you.
Well said. Well, I think it's time for us to wrap things up, but before we go, I gotta ask, are you gonna be double checking your Siri settings after
You
this?
know what? I think I might just do that. Maybe ease up on those Hey Siri requests for a while.
Uh-huh, yeah, me too. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We hope you learned something new about digital privacy and how to protect yourself.
Absolutely. Stay curious, everyone, and stay informed.
And until next time, we'll see you later.
See ya.